Let's talk about the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, where the fate of laws and the limits of power are decided. This week, those 9 justices didn't just make headlines, they sent shockwaves across the globe with a single historic decision. In a move that stunned both supporters and critics, the court declared President Trump's sweeping tariffs unconstitutional, upending years of economic policy in an instant. The wall of taxes that defined his second term, raising prices on everything from groceries to electronics, has now crumbled, leaving businesses and families bracing for what comes next. This isn't just a minor policy adjustment, it's a seismic shift, a fundamental reset of American trade policy and a dramatic check on presidential authority that will echo through history. The impact is enormous, rippling out to every corner of the country, from Iowa farmers who struggled with export bans, to California tech workers facing higher costs, to everyday Americans feeling the pinch at the checkout line. For months, Trump relied on a little-known 1970s law, using it as a tool to single-handedly reshape global trade, arguing it was all in the name of protecting American jobs and industries. But critics, from economists to small business owners, called it an unprecedented power grab, one that backfired, hurting the very people it was supposed to help, and sparking protests across the nation. Now, after months of legal battles and public debate, the Supreme Court has spoken with clarity. The president went too far, and the Constitution draws a clear line. The U.S. Treasury is now ordered to refund over $200 billion in tariffs, sending a tidal wave of money back into the economy, and offering relief to millions of Americans and businesses. Economists predict this massive refund will help cool inflation, boost consumer confidence, and rescue businesses that were teetering on the edge of collapse. But for the White House, the ruling is a devastating blow, wiping out its entire economic strategy overnight and plunging policymakers into uncertainty about what comes next. This moment is about more than just economics or trade, it's about the very balance of power in American democracy and the enduring strength of the Constitution to rein in even the most powerful office. The Supreme Court's decision stands as a powerful reminder. No single office, not even the presidency, holds absolute authority. The rule of law prevails, the gavel has fallen, and its echo will be felt for years to come, reshaping not just policy, but the very fabric of American government. So, what exactly is a tariff? You've probably heard the word tossed around in the news, especially during heated debates about trade and the economy. But what does it really mean, and why does it matter to you? In simple terms, a tariff is a tax that governments place on goods coming in from other countries, an import tax. It's one of the oldest tools in the economic playbook, used for centuries to control trade and raise money. Imagine you're shopping for a new washing machine and you spot a sleek German model that catches your eye. When that washing machine arrives in the US, the government steps in and adds a tariff, a special tax, before it ever hits the store floor. The importer, the company bringing it in, pays the tariff up front, but that cost doesn't just disappear. It gets passed along, so when you finally buy the washing machine, you're the one paying more. The idea behind tariffs is to make foreign goods more expensive, nudging shoppers to choose products made at home instead. It's a way to give local businesses a fighting chance. Supporters argue that tariffs help protect jobs and entire industries, making the country more self-sufficient and less dependent on imports. But here's the catch. The global economy is incredibly complex. It's not just a simple exchange of goods, it's a vast, interconnected web of supply chains that stretch across continents. Take that American-made car, for example. It might be assembled in Detroit, but its parts come from dozens of countries. Engines from Japan, electronics from South Korea, steel from Canada. When tariffs are slapped on those imported parts, the cost of making the car goes up. That means higher prices for you, whether you're buying a new car or just replacing a part. And it doesn't stop there. Other countries often retaliate by imposing their own tariffs on American goods, leading to trade wars that can spiral out of control. Suddenly, American farmers find themselves unable to sell soybeans to China, or manufacturers lose access to key overseas markets. The ripple effects can be huge. For everyday people, this means paying more for everything from clothes and shoes to electronics and groceries. Prices creep up, and your paycheck doesn't stretch as far. Businesses, especially small ones, face higher costs and tougher choices. Some may have to lay off workers or raise prices just to survive. Tariffs are a blunt tool, a sledgehammer in a world that often needs a scalpel. They can disrupt delicate economic machinery in ways that are hard to predict. When you swing that sledgehammer, you might break things you never intended to, causing damage that's difficult to fix and sometimes impossible to reverse. The result? Higher prices, global tension, and economic pain that can ripple through communities, industries, and even entire countries, affecting all of us, whether we realize it or not. President Trump's second term began with a declaration: global free trade was over. He launched a tariff crusade, raising the average U.S. tariff rate from 2% to 17%. New tariffs targeted Canada, Mexico, and China, linking trade to issues like immigration and drugs. By April, a universal 10% tariff hit nearly every country, justified as a way to fix the trade deficit and fund government spending. To do this, Trump used the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, a law meant for real emergencies, not everyday trade policy. Critics warned this was executive overreach, with American businesses and families paying the price through higher costs. Legal challenges erupted immediately, with businesses, states, and advocacy groups arguing that President Trump had overstepped his constitutional authority. The controversy sparked heated debates across the country, with many questioning the limits of executive power and the role of the courts in checking the presidency. The Constitution is clear: it gives Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to impose taxes and tariffs. This separation of powers is a fundamental principle, designed to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful or acting unilaterally on matters that affect the entire nation. Lower federal courts quickly ruled against the administration, finding that the president's actions violated constitutional boundaries. However, the tariffs remained in place while the legal battle escalated, and all eyes turned to the Supreme Court for a final decision. The administration argued that the president needed broad flexibility to protect national security and respond to global threats. Supporters claimed decisive action was necessary, but critics saw a dangerous power grab that threatened the balance of government. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the president cannot unilaterally impose taxes on Americans. The majority opinion emphasized that such authority rests solely with Congress, reaffirming the importance of constitutional checks and balances. The court clarified that the IEEPA, a law intended for emergencies, was never meant to justify sweeping trade actions or bypass Congress on economic policy. This interpretation set a crucial precedent for future administrations. Trade deficits, the court said, are not national emergencies. The Constitution's separation of powers must be respected, especially when it comes to decisions that impact the nation's economy and the rights of its citizens. The ruling was clear and unequivocal. The president had crossed a constitutional line, and the judiciary would not allow such overreach to stand. The Supreme Court's message to the White House was unmistakable: stay in your lane, respect the Constitution, and honor the boundaries set by the nation's founders. The Supreme Court's decision triggered a financial tidal wave. The Treasury must refund over $200 billion in tariffs to American businesses, a desperately needed lifeline for many. For families, the removal of tariffs means relief from rising prices on everything from groceries to electronics. Economists predict inflation will slow, making everyday life more affordable. But the sudden policy reversal brings disruption. Companies that shifted to domestic suppliers now face renewed foreign competition. Some industries fear job losses, while importers and retailers celebrate lower costs. The business community is split. Some see opportunity, others anxiety. The debate over trade isn't over, it's just moved to a new battlefield. America must now find a balance between protecting jobs and keeping prices low. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves through global markets. Stock exchanges surged, and the world breathed a sigh of relief as trade uncertainty eased. U.S. allies welcomed the return to predictable, rules-based trade. The ruling de-escalated tensions, opening the door to renewed cooperation. Not everyone celebrated. China reacted cautiously, waiting to see what comes next. The decision leaves a policy vacuum, but also a chance for real negotiation. International bodies like the WTO may regain relevance as the U.S. returns to established frameworks. For now, the world has stepped back from the brink of a trade war. This Supreme Court decision is about more than tariffs. It's about presidential power. The ruling reaffirms that Congress, not the president, controls taxes and trade. It's a victory for checks and balances, curbing the steady expansion of executive authority. Future presidents will find it harder to use emergency powers as a shortcut. The White House and Congress must now work together on trade policy. America faces a new era, one of debate, compromise, and shared power. The world is watching to see if the US can lead with stability and law, not just force of personality. The debate isn't over, but the rules have changed, and democracy has held firm.